Hello, new day, new video. So, kind of just out here in the shop, just trying to figure out what I'm gonna do next. I need to work on the trailer, but I need to get everything cleaned up first. I took the bottom radiator hose off of the Nova, which it's split like all the way, almost all the way around. Pretty good job messing that up. So when I was in there, I said, okay, with this new radiator, the car's been running a little bit warmer, which could be attributed to the deck not being flat and it putting some combustion gas into the cooling system. Entirely possible, but just in case, I wanted to look and see what the thermostat was. It's a 187 thermostat, so I might put a 160 in there, or I might just buy one and bring it with me on the trip, just in case the car starts running hot, but that's still up in the air. The one thing that I noticed that I really want to change was the upper vent hose. So the vent hose, obviously the steam vent comes from the T here and then goes over to the radiator where I put the fitting in, but it was super short. I mean, it was just barely long enough, and if my motor wasn't solidly mounted, this would have ripped out like long ago. My concern though is when the belt breaks, this tensioner will come basically straight up in the air and it would have hit that hose and broke it. And then I'd have been screwed. So I replaced it, longer hose, plenty of line, gonna make it look nice, but that's done. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna move the car out. I'm gonna do a bit of a deep dive looking for the spacers that I made for the hitch. If I can't find them, I did find the round stock, which is kind of sucks because I thought maybe they'd be with each other, but they weren't. So I found the round stock, so all I have to do is cut it and then re-drill it again, which will take me a while, but it is doable. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna move the car out and then start cleaning, because I have to clean before I ever start working. I don't know about you guys, but a dirty workspace makes it really hard for me to start working. So I clean first and then I work. It's just how I do it. There we go. Well, true confession time. So I've spent the last probably 30, 45 minutes trying to figure out why my glove box does not work as intended anymore. And I didn't really figure it out, but it at least works now. But come to find out, the bolts that I use for the striker should not be bolts, they should be flat, but that's fine. So they were hitting here, so that's been modified a little bit. And over it being stuck a few times and having to be jerry-rigged open, it got bent here. So the striker had to be adjusted just right to get it to this point. So we'll see if when I launch the car, if that flies open, but right now it works. So that's all that I'm doing tonight. Hey everyone, after a little hiatus, I've got back out to the shop finally. So we have a bit of a decision to make. I'm down here, I'm gonna show you something. I put a post out on my Instagram for Womp Filter, and I basically said, like, here's the options, right? We have a radiused spot on the hood where we could put a hood pin that's flat, and it'll have a little bit of a lip on the front and the back, right? Because it's not gonna sit totally flat. Or there's a spot in the factory hood that really kind of looks like it's made, excuse that noise. It looks like it's kind of made for these type of things. So this cutout here looks like it's made for a hood pin, right? So we got this locator magnet. Unfortunately, the hole in the radiator support is here, which is what I wanted to utilize, but that puts it right there, which is not super useful because I'd have to cut through the first layer and try not to hit into the second layer. And that is the spot with the radius. So this is a flat spot in the hood on the other side. So what we've done is we've made a little mount, right? Some gussets. So it's 2 inches wide by 3 inches long. So it needs to be 1.5 inches out to hit the center of the hood up there. So what I did was I just doubled it and then doubled it on the other side and added 1.5 inch gussets because they're only gonna go right to the end there. So essentially, you can see it's gonna hit right on that, and that will be fine. And we also have this side, same story, same spot. So I think that will be fine. Most likely what I'm gonna do, I contemplated what material to make it out of. I mean, I can make it out of mild steel, that'll be fine. I can make it out of aluminum, that would also be fine. I wanna make it out of stainless. So the actual quick latches that you can get, they come with a stainless stud. And it's gonna look nice and it's gonna match material wise. And it's something I've really never messed with. I've never TIG welded stainless before, so it would be kind of nice to just kind of play with it. But there's the quick latches. So my concern is I just have this stock hood latch here that I had to relocate. So when I put the heat exchanger in, I kind of ran out of space and I had to space out the stock hood latch. Well, when I spaced out the hood latch, I had to space out the catch as well. These are held in, you know, through some 1/2-inch bolts, and they're fine, but you can see how much I had to relocate it, right? So that was the original hole there, and all the way back here, but we're just on the lip of it right there. So if I hit the 1/4 mile times that I think I'm gonna hit, you know, like maybe up to 130 potentially. I mean, even at like 80, 90, I can see the edges of the hood just kind of doing this on the freeway. So it just makes me nervous. So this is a safety item. This is a hell of a lot easier and better than having to repaint the entire front of my car and a new windshield and a new hood because it folded up at speed. So that's what we're gonna do. So I need to order the stainless. I was just making the brackets to see how they would look. And that's that. So right now we're gonna put on the lower radiator hose. Now that I have these made and I know how much material I need, we're gonna put the lower radiator hose on. I'm gonna make the spacer brackets for the hitch. I'm gonna put the hitch on, and then I'm gonna get the car out of the shop so I can start working on the trailer. So there's your update. I know I look tired. We've been doing a lot of yard work lately, so when spring hits in the Pacific Northwest, because it rains all the time, the sun comes out and everything grows like crazy. I mean, we have to weed whack. We start on one side of our property and we have to start on the other side by the time we're done, right? It's kind of like painting the Golden Gate. You're perpetually doing it. So it's just been a lot of long hours. So that's why I look tired. Yeah. All right, here's a little update. So I had a 4 1/4 inch bolt, was not long enough. It would probably stick out maybe about that far, maybe 2 or 3 threads. So I went and got some 4 1/2 inch, probably measures out to like 4 3/4. They're a little bit too long, but we are installed finally. So there and there. Had a little bit of misalignment, so on the fork on one side I had to drill it to 9/16 because I hadn't quite got it square when I drilled them. But that's to be expected. We're kind of messing with a lot of different measurements here that weren't solidified until they were. And there's that one. And the inside. And let's see, can we stand on her? Get up here. I think we're good to go. So there it is. There's a trailer hitch on a Nova. Yay. Got some pretty good news. I was able to score everything you see here for $1,000. And if this was just a regular LS, that would still be a good deal. Fortunately, this is more than that. This is a 6.2. This is an actual LSA engine. So this is out of a 2012 CTSV, I believe. He said that when he took it in, it was knocking, but we don't actually have any more explanation than that. 66,000 miles. He took it to a machine shop and he just had them disassemble everything, right? So come on over here. So as you can see, these are the 4863 heads, and you can tell they're LSA because it actually has LSA stamped in them right there. So these look great. They were pressure tested okay. Everything looks all right. There's a couple spots where I think they were transporting things around, and they got a little overzealous with putting things down, and they nicked the combustion chamber right here on the edges. So I'll probably take a carbide burr and just kind of smooth that up a little bit, or maybe just make it flat again. That's probably the worst one right there, if you can see that. Just a little nick in it. But otherwise, they look good. So these are gonna need a rebuild, which won't be too bad. Basically just, I'll lap the valves in. Let's just finish the head out real quick. So I believe it's the intake valves or the exhaust valves. Probably the exhaust valves are sodium filled. But all the valves and everything are there, counted them all. A couple of them look a little lean. They got pretty white. Right? So, you know, it probably had a little action, but it didn't seem like a real big drag racer, so I'm not too concerned with it being like totally just smashed through its whole life. There's a small incidentals like timing chain and stuff in there. But come on over here and take a look at the cylinders. So one of the things is this has been sitting in the back of a vehicle for a while, and as you can see, it's just got some surface rust. None of that is really that bad. I looked online, basically just take some aluminum foil and WD-40. You can get that stuff right off there. So before I mothball this, and we'll get to that later, before I do that, I'm gonna get all the rust off, and I'm going to just kind of coat the whole thing WD-40, put it in a bag, and just put it in storage. So basically, the object here is to get this in the car eventually. as of right now, I don't have the money or time to make this work and put it in the car. It needs a few things. It's a 8-bolt crank instead of a 6-bolt, so I have to get a new flywheel. It needs a few different things. Machine shop told him that he needed to take one of the bores to 10 thousandths over. Looking at them, I see no scarring. I see nothing that would indicate to me this can't be slapped back together. So if you look here, it came with all the pistons, and these mains are actually special to the LSA. I believe they're nodular iron. They're a lot stronger than the traditional like Gen 3, Gen 4 main caps. And it came with all the studs and bolts and everything in there. All of it has some surface rust, which is not great. But again, it's just surface rust. So we'll take one of these pistons out here. And I looked over all of these before I bought it. All the rings still have their tempering, right? They're all still springy. All the pistons, I mean, the worst they have is just carbon buildup. But these are all special pistons for this particular engine. And these are basically Gen 4 rods, which is great because those are super strong. Everything looks really good. I'm very happy with the state of it. I think maybe someone didn't keep up on the oil changes as much as they should have. So like, for example, this guy here, if you look in the rod bearing area, there's a little bit of scarring there, and I'll show you in the actual bearings themselves. It looks like one of them caught just for a small amount of time. It doesn't look like it even spun 360. Come on over. But if you look here, so these are all the mains, right? So this one, a lot of that just wipes out. I mean, there's some scarring in there, but they literally threw all these in a box, so it's hard to say. But some of these have a scar that goes lengthwise, which means that there was a piece of dirt or something in there that, you know, got lodged in the bearing and it just stuck there. And like this one, you can see it made its way through the babbitt and it's actually into the copper. But these are all stock. So if you look on the back, they have GM part numbers. So these are all from the factory. So the 66,000 miles kind of holds up. So these got some scarring in them, and I have no idea which one went where, but if you kind of take a look at them, you can see they're all in decent shape. And you know, you can catch some of them, like this one's a little out of round, which is kind of weird. But you can catch some of them with a fingernail. But overall, the mains look okay. They don't look as good as the rods do. The thrust washer, or thrust bearing, I should say, has some wear, but it looks perfect. I think it was an automatic car, if I were to guess. He seems like an automatic kind of guy. So all the rods, let me pick the worst one out from here for you. So this guy's probably the worst. And again, it just looks like it got a piece of junk that sent through the motor and just made some scarring. So that's those. So let's take a look at the crank here real quick. And this is a special crank because it's actually forged. It's a special metal. It's only a couple steps down from an LS9, which is the best LS they make. So surface rust on here, and if you look at all the mains, like this guy here has a line in it, but you can't feel it, right? This one here also has some lines, but you can't feel them with your fingernail. So I think I'm just gonna, I mean, worst case scenario, I'll have it polished by a machine shop and just make sure that, you know, it's flat. But I think most people would probably just slap this together once they get the rust off of it. So that's that. Came with, you know, most of the things that you would need to put this thing back together. Oh boy, that thing's heavy. Good piece of metal there. So yeah, let me flip this up, take a look at the back side, or the bottom side, I should say. And if you look down in here, all the cylinders, I mean, there's just the lightest of scarring, but like I said, you just can't catch a fingernail, and that's what dictates going to the machine shop. So the one thing that was missing was the piston oil squirters, which is particular to the LS9 LSAs. And so I talked him down $100. He was actually asking 15 for all this, and I got him down to 1,000 for all of it, just to kind of get it out of his way, which is a good deal for me and probably a good deal for him because he just had it sitting at his sister's house. So there it is. I'm going to say bearings, cleaning everything. Maybe I'll have the crank check just to make sure that it's you know, round and true. And then I'll clean the block up. I'll probably take a carbide to it and just kind of clean up all the edges because there's some, you know, surface flashing and stuff that you traditionally get with these blocks. And then we'll slap this bad boy together. Those heads alone would be, well, the displacement and the heads alone is about 100 horse increase over the engine that I have if I did nothing else. And this is going to get a better cam, probably what I have in there now eventually, if not something better. So this is going to be great. It's going to be a really good engine. And it's a lower compression. It's 9.1. The one I have now is like 9.9. So good news. So we just need to get everything cleaned up, put it back together, and one day you'll see this in the car. I think for right now, we're gonna take the 5.3 that's at the machine shop. We're gonna rebuild that one. All the parts are sitting over there on the bench. And that's gonna go in the car because that's already what we have, right? So we're not gonna try and rebuild everything right here before 3 months comes due and it's time to race. So we're gonna take the easy route, put a 5.3 back in it, and then once we get done with the racing and everything, we'll throw the 6.2 in and we'll have an upgrade path. So there it is. Hello everyone. So I am finally getting around to working on the trailer. Just been, spring life getting in the way. So we need to figure out a configuration. So I bought some expanded metal, which is up there on top of the toolbox. Kind of a mix up when I ordered it. I thought I was getting 2 pieces, only got 1. But that's fine, because honestly the box takes up most of the trailer anyways, so it's really not a big deal. So what are we doing? We need to figure out which configuration we're gonna go with. So this way, most of the weight would be on the tongue, right? So they say you want 60% of the weight on the tongue and 40% in the rear, obviously. In this way, it's basically 100%, because this box is gonna hold fluids, it's gonna hold tools, it's gonna hold parts, it's gonna hold a lot of stuff. I'm not really comfortable with it in this configuration. It does look better aesthetically, if anybody cares about that. I mean, you got the gas cans in the center, you get the jack in the back, and it looks better. So this is a spare. This is that 26-inch I bought for like $25 at the junkyard. Brand new Mickey Thompson 26 front runner. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wedge it up underneath the frame. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Basically, it's gonna go up in there, and then I'm just gonna have a little bracket. Whoops. I have a little bracket that holds it up to the bottom of the trailer, like so. And that should work in case I need a spare, because the front runners are pretty hard to find, and especially, I'm sure Northern California doesn't have them in stock anywhere. So that'll be a nice thing to have. It might fill full of water if we end up with some inclement weather, but it is what it is, it'll come out. So anyway, so that's the rear spare. There's a front spare in the same configuration. Let me walk you over there so you can see. So basically, we've got this little drop bracket here. We'll bolt the spare right underneath, so we're not taking up any extra space anywhere else. So the other configuration, and I'll throw a picture in here, is the box would be on the passenger side, and specifically on the passenger side because when I get out of the car, if I have to refuel it or something, I want all the jugs to be on the driver's side. Because if I'm on the side of the road out of gas, I don't want to have to go back and forth. So I like that. If I can get the jack on its side, that gives me even more space, which is great. And the jack stands, if I can do something kind of clever with those, that would be nice. The tires are kind of up in the air, right? So the tires I have now are 8.5. They're 26 by 8.5 by 15s. I have them for sale. They're basically brand new, but what I would like to run is 26 by 10, just to make sure that I get the traction that I need, assuming everything else works out, because we got a lot of things to do. So these tires are not necessarily the width that I'm going to end up with. So in the other config, they're at the end of the trailer, and that kind of gives me a little more space to just kind of hang them off if they do end up being 10 inches wide instead of 8.5. Not a huge difference, but there would be a difference, right? So that's the thing. Which way do I go? I'm going to eat lunch. I'm going to think about it, and then I'm going to come back out here and I'm going to make something. So let's see what we find out. All right, while I'm here working on the trailer, I remembered that I need to get these pistons cleaned up. So got all the connecting rods and wrist pins taken out and marked, and all the pistons marked accordingly. So we're gonna go throw them in the tank and see how they look afterwards. All right, so as you just saw in the time lapse, we have been working. So got a lot of metal cut, got a lot of metal welded. Basically, the frame is done. I ran out of shielding gas, so most 98% of this is welded on, the expanded steel. So I need to get some bolts. The bolts that come with it are probably long enough, but I don't have enough of them. So I need to go to the store and get some more. But once that's done, I just need to put things in it and see where to put like some hooks. Cause I'm thinking maybe instead of solidly mounting everything, that I'll just keep my options open, because I do want to use this trailer outside of drag and drive. And if I can, it would be nice to just kind of drill some holes in the angle iron at the ends and just run some ratchet straps. That won't be the fastest for drag and drive, but it'll at least make it a trailer I can use for almost anything outside of that. So it's looking pretty good. I'm happy with it. That new welder, that titanium welder, one of the best welders I've ever used. I have a Lincoln, yeah, the red one, the Lincoln 110 that I used when I built my car, and it's fine. It just always seemed like it was a little cold. This thing, man, just butter, perfect. Until you run out of shielding gas anyways. So there it is. I know it's not a ton of work, but it takes a long time, and it's getting done. So we'll catch up with you next time.